It's Fill Your Plate Now, where every bite brings you closer to the farm gate and further from what's unhealthy. Now here's your hosts, Julie and Tammy, helping you live well by filling your plate well.
So, Tammy, on this episode, now we're going to talk everything we can imagine about as it relates to plants and specifically avocados. I've brought on a guest that I serendipitously discovered through my cousin because he posted an interview that this young man that we're about to talk to did with my cousin. So it's going to be kind of fun.
Well, exotic plants, too,
Yes.
he works in, right? And avocados, that's got to be one of my very favorites.
I was going to say, and as our nutrition ninja, you're going to appreciate his healthy take on avocado trees.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear more about this.
So our guest is, hello, Gary Gregg.
Hello there. We forgot to give honorable mention to my good buddy, Jeff Howard.
Yes, well, that's kind of coming, but you're right. He's my cousin, and thanks to him, I discovered you.
That's right.
So I want to tell everybody that's listening to this podcast and viewing us via video that you call yourself a plant nerd, and you've been a landscape contractor and designer for over 35 years, and you own Gold Gate Palms and Exotic Nursery in Point Richmond, with growing yards in Winters, California, which is near Avocado. Did I say that right?
Yeah. You pretty much got it right. It's Golden Gate Palms, like the bridge.
Okay.
And, then we have our main outlet in Richmond, which is right just north of Berkeley by about 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh, perfect.
And we have a growing operation where it's really hot out at my ranch in Winters next to Vacaville, and a wonderful microclimate for heat-loving plants. Then we have another growing ground nursery down in North County, San Diego, which sort of comprise. And we have a new nursery going in Fremont, California, so we can better cater to all those techies down there that are too lazy to drive to Richmond. Yeah.
So you're doing a lot, and you're doing a lot.
Yeah, more than anyone probably should. I don't recommend doing as much as I do.
Well, you had a visit with your wife just before we started the show, and I'm sure she would have a huge opinion on some of this busyness of you that you're dealing with, Gary. But you're also noted for hosting the most diverse collection of plant materials in Northern California, obviously, based on just the locations you talked about. You've been raised in California, and you bring your local expertise to all plant enthusiasts that will listen. His passion, first and foremost, is avocado trees as well as mango trees, and that's why we've got a lot of questions for him about avocado. Previously, Greg hit the big time as the host of the HGTV's garden show Superscapes. Now you host your own YouTube channel with more than 11,000 subscribers. I double-checked that, and I've watched several of your shows, by the way, so I'd get really familiar with you. And
we have to make sure everyone watches the show I did with your cousin, Jeff.
Yes, that's what inspired all this. You work with homeowners to build the garden of their dreams. Superscapes. Now he hosts. Oh, I already mentioned that. You host your own YouTube channel. Read your notes, Julie. I discovered the enthusiastic and entertaining plant nerd when he interviewed my cousin Jeff Howard about his rose bushes. And it was the funniest interview. I mean, I was delighted by the whole thing. I've known my cousin all my life. Obviously, he's my cousin, but it was just an absolutely delightful show. And now I'm turning the tables.
Well, it's not hard to have fun on camera when you have someone like Jeff as your wingman. So that was pretty easy to do. And he was actually lecturing me on roses too. I really don't know a lot about roses, and I was learning a lot from him that day.
Yeah, it's amazing for such like a macho man's man kind of guy. I love it that he does roses. So, but now I'm turning. Go ahead.
I think the title of it is something like, the manliest men love roses or something like that. So find a way to link this.
I'm going to have to see that one.
Yeah, you'll have to watch it.
I watched a few, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah. So I'm turning the tables on you now, and I want to share your enthusiasm with our audiences and find out, most importantly, your obsession with plants. One of the things my cousin did tell me, Jeff said, he was always always talking about plants in school. So he has fulfilled his dream, and that's his business. So I'm going to just start out. What inspired your obsession with plants?
I think I watched too many episodes of Gilligan's Island, or it's really hard to say, but for some odd reason, since I could ever remember, I love plants, and I especially love subtropical and tropical plants. And I was obsessed about palm trees up front, to the point where whenever my parents would take me to the park, there'd be some palm trees there, and they would be playing tennis and just neglecting their children, as you did in the 70s. That was normal. Let your kids run loose even at a young age of 4 or 5, 6 years old. And I would go gravitate to the palm trees to see if I was lucky enough to, if any of the fronds had fallen, for which I could drag back to the car and beg my parents to take home and build forts with, which they always denied me that privilege. I don't know why they didn't want me to take them home. But yeah, I always had an affinity for these tropical plants, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then eventually I met there was no books, or there was very few books back then. This is back in the 70s. So I'm 56 years old. I know it doesn't look like it, but I really am. Yeah, back in the 70s, there wasn't a lot of readily available information. And my dad was like fixing up our property quite a bit, and we'd make a lot of nursery runs, and they had general nursery stock, and they would have a few palms, and I would look at them and think, there's other ones I've seen. And I was like 5, 6 years old, like asking the salesman these questions. And I would say, where are the other ones? Where are the other ones I've seen? And they're like, this is all that will grow here. And I'm like, no, that's a lie. You're all lying to me, just like Santa. Well, no, I shouldn't say. Just like other lies that people told you as a child. And I'm like, no, this is all a lie. And so sure enough, eventually, when I was about 14 years old, I saw this. I kind of learned a little bit more, no internet or anything. And I met a guy who, actually, I read an article about a guy who was growing banana trees near me, and had all these other subtropical plants in a backyard nursery. And so I immediately got into the phone book, the big giant phone book from back in the day, and found the guy's number, called him up and chatted him up. And he's like, you should come over and hang out. And I'm like, he's like, have your parents drive you over. And so at 14, I had my parents drive me over to this guy's house, drop me off, hang out for a couple of hours. And he gave me all these plants and cuttings and stuff. And he knew everything about everything. And he basically said, yeah, there's like a big conspiracy theory against us exotic plant people. And all the books say the stuff won't grow here. All the other nurseries say it won't grow here. And there's either a conspiracy or they're just uneducated. And then his whole goal was to like prove that wrong. And I sort of became a disciple of him. His name was Lee Anderson. He owned a nursery called Copacabana Gardens.
Oh, I love it.
Had great times with him. And then I eventually started meeting, anytime you'd see a really epic garden somewhere, I just go bang on the door and say, hey, show me your plants.
Yeah. And now you're carrying in, following in his footsteps, but you're taking it that one, the modern day level. You've got your own YouTube channel. Is it just Gary Gragg, or do they go, is it called The Plant Nerd?
You can find me just about any which way, but the channel itself is called True Plant Stories.
Okay.
And then YouTube came out at some point and said, hey, we have this new thing with this new sort of identifier of your channel. And I don't really know how it works, but they said it's a one-time to like utilize some name or something in addition to what your channel's called. And I had these little girls teasing me once when I was like 40 years old. And it made me feel like I was a kindergartner getting all upset. They were calling me names. And they were riding their bikes around me in circles. And they kept saying, scary Harry Gary, scary Harry Gary. And I literally had PTSD from that happening in kindergarten. And finally, I was about to scream at them and say, shut up. Then I thought, well, this is really funny. These little 7-year-old girls are under your skin calling you names. And I thought, that's kind of a funny ring they have to that. And everyone calls me Greg because my last name is Grag, even though my first name is Gary. So then I had an experiment of like, okay, what would happen if I just said my name, Scary Harry Gary, as they recommended, those 7-year-olds. And so now you can actually get to my channel through Scary Harry Gary.
Okay. And it's easy to remember. It has a ring to it.
Well, it's
That
always
is true.
Yeah.
That is true. And you'll
Always
never call
good.
me Greg. If
Yeah.
you think Scary Hair Gary. Right.
always good to have multiple ways to get to your channel, though. So
right.
you can't lose on that.
Right.
Oh, but really fascinating. And your background there is amazing. Yeah, I can tell it's California. It's so lush. It looks beautiful.
We could do more.
Oh, it looks amazing.
These are years and years and years of toil and blood and sweat, a lot of tears, a whole bunch of dollars, and about 15 years of you see
It's
nothing's ever
beautiful.
done.
That is crazy. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Well, if you look close enough, none of the palm trees are properly trimmed because it's kind of like with the shoe guy who doesn't have enough time to fix his kids' shoes. The same principle applies here. So I have to live with
Well,
you
it's still a beautiful backyard.
I know. I want to hear more about some of those, and actually, I want to start with something I know that is near and dear to you, and I love them too. Avocados. I know that you really specialize in avocados, and I remember driving through California, and there are so many different types of avocados in California alone. But with your show and some of the things I've heard you say, you also encourage people at home to grow avocados if they can. Why is that, and where do they grow best?
It would be best explained why I do this. Probably the primary reason I do this, best explained in a video on my YouTube channel. You could probably search on Google and get right to it, called Gary's Blood Avocado Rant. And the ecological, well, first we'll just talk ecologically. Ecologically, there's no reason for these little guys here to be shipped all the way from Peru, Chile, and Mexico, sitting in cold storage for a really long time, burning up hydrocarbons with the diesel ships that have to get them here and stock them into the stores, when you really can just like reach out and pick them off the tree. There's just no reason whatsoever. And so whenever you're buying an avocado in the store, when you could have grown it yourself, you're committing an environmental atrocity, cumulatively weighed with everybody doing it. And what's happening in Mexico, there's so many things going on. There could be a whole podcast on this. But down in Mexico, they are deforesting their forests to grow these things, like really highly rich habitats. And this is on top of just the shipping expenses to the world and everything ecologically. But like monarch butterflies are having a problem down there. They're changing the weather actually, because a lot of these forests will actually create secondary clouds that go up into the higher pine forests of Mexico, where these monarch butterflies live and thrive and breed. And it's drier up there now because of all of the a lot of the groundwater is used for the avocados further down the slopes, and they've created a monoculture of them. They're great trees. They're beautiful. They're native to Mexico. But when you take out a whole diverse forest to put them there, it's when you can grow them in your backyard, it's much better to do it yourself. The other thing that's happening there is they've actually made it illegal to cut down native forest to plant your avocados if they're not already there. However, if there's a naturally occurring fire on your property that denudes the forest, at that point you can replant with avocados because you're reforesting. So anytime there's any kind of like lightning strikes in the area, what these guys are doing is just lighting their forests on fire.
Oh, wow.
Saying they got caused by lightning strikes. And then therefore, the forest loses. And then the insatiable demand of the world for avocados is satiated.
But so, like, my question to you then, I mean, obviously California, you guys, and you have farms that grow avocados.
Yeah.
Are you saying that there's a larger geographic area where avocados can be grown? And can we here in Arizona? It gets pretty hot.
Yeah. In fact, there's a guy out in Arizona, kind of like me. I should know his name, and I don't. He's gonna be mad if he watches this, but he's great. He's kind of pushing all these things just like I am. And either he or somebody he knew discovered some avocado like out on some hiking trail in some river wash that someone just threw out as a pit. And it's out there living on its own. And I think it's called the Aravaipa or something like that.
Aravaipa.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think that's the story on that one. And so that tree right there proves that absolutely you can grow them. I mean, I have a property, my winter's property by Vacaville. I'm in a really, really extremely hot climate there with really low humidity for a lot of strange reasons. It's just on it's on the Central Valley side of the hills from Napa Valley. So what's happening there is the air masses come from the Pacific. They go across the Napa Valley. Then there's some mountains behind the Napa Valley. Those clouds rise up and then they disperse all their moisture, and then they very quickly descend right onto my property. And it's just like the Nevada effect with between Nevada and California over the Sierra, where it's just bone dry on the other side of the sea. On one side, it rains like crazy and snows like crazy. On the other side, it's bone dry because the descending air superheats and it super dries. And so my ranch is like that, and we've gotten to 118 degrees 2 days in a row 2 years ago. And even up there, the avocados will get burnt on the southwest side, but then immediately grow right back. And I don't know if Phoenix gets much more than 118 degrees, does it?
Oh yeah,
Not often.
not
though.
often. And this summer was a lot better than the previous 2 summers, but it can get hot. Yeah.
What I tell people in the real desert locations like that, and probably what I should do at my ranch, but I kind of grow them everywhere just to kind of push the limits. What they should do is they should just grow their avocados on an east facing wall so that hot, and if it's a 2-story house, even better. And if that hot afternoon blazing sunlight, when it's 118, 120, is going to stay off the plant. Now, I've had so much experience with these things. When I watch this 118 hit these trees, like I said, just the southwest side of the trees, it looked like someone took a blowtorch to it. The rest of the tree that was shaded by that side are fine. And so it just goes to show you that if you just had a little bit of, filtrated shade, what they do in the desert oftentimes too, they have layers of plant materials, and they'll have like the date trees above that are creating the dates. Then they might have like big, tall banana trees underneath that. Then they'll have, smaller tomatoes or things like that. And if you put the tomatoes or whatever it is, or like the avocados out in the middle of the desert by themselves, they might not have a chance. But down under the filtered light of date palms or other higher canopy items, where you can decrease the amount of light and the intensity of the sunlight and the heat, then you should be able to do it.
Yeah.
So
Wow, that's amazing. That's
There's
good
a
to
huge
know.
amount of area you can grow them.
It sounds like they can be grown in multiple places, and I know there's a zillion different types of avocados too.
Right.
In fact, there was a new variety called guacacado. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is?
I could just do show and tell.
That'd
Yes,
be great
please.
too.
This is my head. This is my head next to a guacacado.
Oh my
Whoa.
goodness.
Yeah, this is a huge avocado. I'm going to give you a comparison. I don't have a regular Hass avocado here, just because I was lazy and didn't pick it. But I've got a few this is a lamb Hass avocado, and this one's a little bit small, but not too small. You can see the difference in size between these.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hugely different.
How did these come
Yeah.
about?
Well, this one here is a mystery on how it came about. What I do know about it is that one day I was riding my bike back to my nursery. This is very close to my nursery near Berkeley there. And I was cruising along, and I'm always looking for new varieties of avocados. It takes an avocado about 10 years from seed to sort of show what it's going to do, because the seedling plants, they want to grow straight up for a lot of time, like in the rainforest or the forest where they're from. They basically want to grow as fast as they can up through the canopy and get the sunlight. And then once they get there, then they spread out, flower, and fruit. And so what we're doing with these avocados is disrupting that process, because we don't want to wait 10 years for these trees to do that. So we take a seedling that's trying to go really fast and straight up, and then we take a branch off a mature tree that's trying to spread and flower because it's already mature, and we splice those together so we can clone onto the seedling, the exact clone of what you're trying to do. Okay, and so
We
in
do
this
that
case-
with pistachio trees, and you'd appreciate
Yeah,
this,
most-
Garrett. Yeah, a tea
most
bud,
fruit-
and we'd slip in the the fruit stock, the more premium, whatever is, and the
Yeah.
root stock itself of the tree might be totally different. So cool. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And so this one and so what's interesting though is like most of the avocados that are all the name varieties that you hear about, almost all of them um, have all been like sort of discovered in Southern California. And through the way it usually happens is somebody will just be cruising through their grove, some seedling will pop up, they'll just ignore it for a while, in the middle of their house grove. And then all of a sudden they'll start seeing like, wow, this thing looks really interesting. It's got big fruit. It's really good for whatever reason. And then they make, clones of that. And then they make a new variety basically that way. And so it's kind of through accident mostly.
So
There is
what's inspired you then to be on this search? And it sounds like California is catered to a lot of different varieties of the avocado tree.
Well, first, there is a giant myth you couldn't grow them in Northern California, which I immediately disproved.
Oh.
And then I realized that, well, you know what? There's all these people that have been throwing their pits in their backyard and they've been sprouting and they've been growing for years and years and years, which means that they've done all this sort of like investment of time, energy, and resources to reveal what these plants are going to be. Because every time you sprout a seed, you have something unique genetically. And so I was like, okay, well, instead of me sprouting millions of seed and then, having space for these things to grow up for 10 years to see if I get anything good, let's just look around to see what's out there already. And so I'm always on the lookout. And I found some really interesting ones. And not only are they interesting, but they're born and bred in the Bay Area from seeds that were people, tossing in their backyard. This is one of them.
How interesting.
Yeah.
I would
so
have
was
never
riding
imagined
my
that.
riding my bike back from like leaving my truck somewhere where they're going to put a sign on the door for the truck. And I was going back to my nursery and I took a little side street going, well, I've never been down this street. Let's just go look for avocados. And, it's what I do. And so I'm looking around and I see this tree that's got really big fruit for that time of year. It was just recently after flowering and fruiting. So they weren't mature yet, but just looking at the size of the fruit at that time of year, I thought, wow, looks like that one might get pretty big. I should like write this address down and come back. So I did. And then I came back and I found these monsters. And then I met the lady who lives there and she's super nice. In fact, the lady who lived there, strange story. She grew up until she was 4 years old on the ranch that was filmed in Yellowstone.
Oh.
Her great grandpa like owned that thing since
So
the 1800s.
cool.
So they basically wrote that story about her family pretty much. But anyway, that's a side note. But she told me, oh yeah, some lady down the street had this, gave me a fruit from her tree. It was really big. So I thought I'd take it home and plant it. And she did. And then the thing took off and didn't fruit for some years because it was still immature, because it takes 10 years to really get going with the fruit. And then all of a sudden, boom, started fruiting these big, giant cantaloupe-sized avocados. And then I came along and told her how special it was. And so I said, hey, I'd love to promote this thing. I'd love to buy the propagation rights to this tree and, try to, get it going and get it famous and get it all over the place. And so she's like, that sounds great. So I did. And she's really happy about that. And so I named it Guacacata. First, I called it Gordo Grag because,
So now is this is truly one of your patented or whatever you call it,
this is my one and only patented avocado.
Okay.
I have another really cool plant called Agave Cara's Stripes. It's a thornless agave that I named after my wife. People could just Google that and get images, but it's really beautiful. Usually it's a lime green, the whole plant. This plant is half lime green and half yellow stripes. That's the first one I patented like 25 years ago. That patent is now, it's an old patent, but that plant's all over the world now. It's all because like I got this thing going. And so now, I've always been looking for the ultimate avocado my whole life. And this is it.
Wow.
And the reasons this is it, as far as I'm concerned, is one, I'm looking for Northern California avocados. This was born and bred, right here in the Bay Area. And so it takes our cold, takes our climate. And this tree doesn't even really get any water. Once it got established, they stopped watering it, yet it still prolifically fruits.
Wow.
That you couldn't do that in Arizona, I don't think. But you can do it here because we have fairly foggy mornings often,
and the fog drips off the trees. And once the trees get really rooted deep down into the soil, they often are just on their own, still producing fruit.
Well, I
And
can see why you call it guacacado, because it's so
Yeah.
big. You only probably need one for your guacamole.
I know. Yeah.
That's part of it.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought it was guacacado because maybe it was for guacamole specifically.
yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah.
Guacamole, that's what I meant.
You got it. So after I evaluated
I
this
can't
thing
even
for a
remember what I
while,
said.
the things I realized about it is it's really, as far as I'm concerned, the best avocado there is for guacamole production.
There you go.
It doesn't taste any better than like regular guacamole. It tastes just as good as a regular Hass avocado. And well, that's another thing. You know, all these avocados you grow at your house, they're going to taste a lot better, just like tomatoes you grow at your house.
Sure.
Because
yeah.
they're not being shipped so far. They're not being cold stored and all that. So, but this is just as high quality as a Hass avocado, the typical avocados they use for guacamole production. But the differences are that it's so big that you could just like cut the thing in half, pull the seed out, and just rock and roll and get so much fruit from this one fruit here. And it's got the perfect shape to scoop out with a spoon. It doesn't have that sort of narrow top section.
Right.
This one here. So it makes it so much easier. And the other really important thing for guacamole production is you often will like get little pieces of the skin that will break off on your avocado, and you got to pick them out with your fingers. And this one here, this skin is 3 times the thickness of a Hass avocado. And it's so thick that it's not even really skin. It's more like a shell. And it's so thick that you could cut the whole thing in half, pull the seed out, put all of your guacamole toppings in here, your lime, your hot sauce, your salt, your pepper, you know, whatever you want to put in there, and mash them all up. Your garlic, put them all in there and mash it up inside the shell of this thing and serve it in the shell of this thing. And like you need some kind of pedestal to put it on. So, but I thought it would be an ideal one, not only to save labor in the production of the guacamole, you could probably make guacamole like 3 times faster for as far as the labor goes with these guys than with the regular avocados for those, because of the shape, because of how thick the skin is. You can aggressively pull it out, and there's so much fruit per plant or per fruit.
That's
And
a
then-
full meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then you can take it to the Mexican restaurant, put it on one of those little stone, little things they have for the when they serve you salsa, and serve it like this. Put the little Mexican flag in it.
It could
and
be a
whole lime on top.
fiesta avocado dip. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had, Tammy, you have a good question about patents and
Well, you mentioned, yes. You mentioned, Gary, that you had a patent on that. Are all avocado trees patented? And how
No.
many are out there? How many different?
Well, if you do the research on the patents for avocados, there's quite a few, actually, more than you would think. But it has to be a pretty darn special fruit to patent it. Like here's an example here. Here's one. Somebody sent me this one because they wanted to find out like what it is. They just mail it to me. You can see it's very similar.
it
but
is.
I don't know if you can see this, but the guacacado has like, kind of bumps on it a little bit, has some like little speckles of golden in it, makes it really pretty. And then this one is smoother. I don't know how thick the skin is and that kind of thing, but you can just see from the size alone that, the guacacado is just, way superior. And so this one is very cool. Like for instance, here's a typical Hass size avocado. So you can see, it's a great avocado. You're pretty stoked to have this in your garden right here, but it's bigger than a regular Hass. So I think it's probably better. But when it comes to, the big boy here, there's really no comparison. And so you wouldn't patent this. It just wouldn't be worth it. It's pretty expensive. It takes a lot of time and effort. And, but when you have something really unique, that's when you kind of want to protect that so that you can, get a little bit of a return, ideally on all the time spent in trying to promote it and get it out there and everything.
It's looking
So-
for the rare gem, so that's what might
Yeah.
influence a patent versus not.
And is there a
Yeah.
difference in the flavor of the different avocados?
Oh yeah, there's usually a difference a lot of the time, depending upon the varieties. I was going to say also,
what's interesting to note is I believe the Hass avocado, that was the first avocado that was patented ever.
Oh.
And what was interesting about that, I don't know if you guys know the Fuerte avocado. It's a really good one, but it has thin skin. It's lighter green, and the skin isn't as protective to the fruit, which is the big reason why the Hass avocado eventually became superior. But it took all the way from the Hass avocado was patented in 1926. It took until about 1975 before the Hass avocado overtook the Fuerte in commercial production. So things happen rather slowly in this industry.
Well, and stuff takes time. So, Gary,
Yeah.
we need to have your sermon on why the avocado is such a perfect food. We could tell by this visit right now that you're very passionate about it, but give us your sermon on why the avocado is such a perfect food.
Well, I think I'm living proof actually, because I like to think that I don't look as anciently old as I am. And I think maybe it's because I eat 3 or 4 avocados a day,
Wow.
because I have an unlimited amount. But no, it's a wonderful fruit. There's very few fruiting trees that will give you real nutrition. Most trees will give you sugar and fiber and moisture. But in the case of avocado, you're getting these really high quality fats, which are really healthy for you. And the other fun thing about the avocados, besides being a real complete food, is that I guess they have some antioxidant qualities with like heart disease and things like that. But the best thing about these avocados, and why it's so nice to have your own tree, is because these things can sit on the tree ready to eat for even longer than a whole year. So
Wow.
here in the northern hemisphere, these plants will flower and fruit starting in March through June, and it happens sooner in hotter climates and later in cooler climates. Even just the same plants. And then it takes them between 6 and 18 months from that point to fully ripen up. There's some varieties, like there's one called Mexicola, that will, land on the tree a little bit early, like March, April. It's an early setter, but then it will be ready to eat by September. Okay. But then on the opposite end of the spectrum, then it'll sit on the tree for a good 3 or 4 months, and you can still eat it on the tree. So most of these trees, like an apricot, for instance, once an apricot is ready to eat, you need to collect all that fruit in 2 weeks and either eat it all or dry it or process it or can it, because that's it. It's all going to drop and the whole season's going to be over with. With avocados, you have this really long pick period. And in the case of this, and some of these ones, especially like the guacacado, it'll take this thing about 16, 17 months from flowering and fruiting and setting on the tree until you can eat it.
Wow.
So this fruit here was set on the tree. Right now we're mid-September. This was set on the tree not last April, but the April before that. Okay. And then and only then does it get good to eat, because if you pick it before that, it'll just kind of shrink. It'll never get soft. It'll be like hard and rubbery, and it's just no good. And that's when you know you picked an avocado too soon.
So you said you eat 3 avocados a day. Would breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Not 3 of these.
Not 3 of those, right? But
I'll eat about 3 of these.
yeah, are you having them breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Tell us how you're having them.
I put them on everything.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously California, we eat a lot of Mexican food out here. Like I just dump huge chunks of avocados on the Mexican food like crazy. That's one thing I love to do. The other thing I love to do is I like to just get like good old Dave's bread and that real chunky wheat kind of bread with all the seeds in it. And then I'll get a little mayo, and I'll just get a little bit of turkey and just a copious amount of avocado, like maybe sometimes like 2 of them, and throw it on there. So it becomes mostly an avocado sandwich, and I'll eat that. The other way I like to do it is I just get raw avocado, and I get olive oil, vinegar, a little bit of salt and pepper, and I just get whatever, like as healthy of a cracker as you can find. Maybe there's no such thing, but
throw them on the crackers, eat those things like crazy. I will actually take my avocados places with me and, pull them out of my pocket at the restaurant when no one's looking. And then I'll just load it. Like I have a burger. I'll just add like 3 inches of avocado to it. So it's just oozing out on all sides.
You
That's
take
crazy.
to the restaurant avocados like some people take Tabasco sauce.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
right.
that's
Like,
great.
or
That's-
wine. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Somebody said they should charge me a pitting fee at the restaurant.
It should.
there you
Porkage
go.
fee.
But you know,
Yeah.
you answered one of those questions I have had for a very long time, because we were driving through California to a wedding and we stopped at one of the fruit stands on the side of the road and picked up avocados and brought them back to Arizona with us, and I swear they lasted 6 months. And we didn't.
Oh, you mean the ones you brought back?
Yeah.
You put them in their fridge?
I don't. Initially, we didn't. No, but they
Oh,
lasted
well,
a long time.
what I meant was they'll sit on the tree and patiently wait for you to.
Oh,
Okay. So like I have one tree, like what is it? This tree here. This is kind of where I got the name of guacacado. This avocado here is called Little Cado, and it's not called Little Cado because the fruit is little. It's because it's a dwarf avocado tree, so it's really nice for smaller gardens, and it produces like crazy here at my place. And then so Little Cado, I'm like, okay, what's the best guacamole avocado? Guacacado. So that's where I got the name there. But this tree here, I can pick fruit from this tree here starting in May, after the May that it flowered, a full year after it flowered and fruited, and start picking it, and it's really good. And then this tree will hold this crop of fruit for a whole additional year, another 12 months. So that, from one tree, you can get avocados all year long. Now, toward the end of that, they are starting to drop pretty aggressively. You got to stay on top of it. But I did do that experiment once. Usually I eat them so much that, there's none left after 4 or 5 months. But in this case, I left some on the tree to conduct the experiment. I think I made some videos about it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, we have to remember that obviously this has to be fairly temperate climates. It sounds like avocados can grow a lot of places, but they have to be temperate, because you would not be able to leave an avocado on your avocado tree outside during the winter in North and South Dakota.
Yeah. So I'll just tell you the general, well, and then the last thing about like eating them, as you mentioned, you bought some home, they lasted a long time. You could pick these things when they're ripe, bring them in and let them sit on your counter until they just start getting a little soft. If you pick too many, you can't eat them all right then. Well, then you take those and put them in your fridge, and they'll last up to a month in your fridge once they've kind of gotten slightly soft. Then you might bring them out, let them sit on the counter one more day when you're really ready to eat them. But that way you can kind of even out your picking and your consumption rate. And so a lot of people don't know that, but that's a really good way to slow down the ripening of these things. So, if you think about whatever avocado tree you have, whatever pick period it is, you can pick the last bit of the plant, the fruit at the end of the pick period. Then you still have a whole another month to consume those, to get them,
They were,
and then,
they were very hard when we got them. And
And the last thing is, the longer these things sit on the tree, the richer they get. They build up more and more oil. And so, they're good when you first get them out there and they're first edible. But as it goes through the season, it's like chocolate cake. It's like there's all degrees of richness in chocolate cake. And you start getting toward the end of the season, you start getting some really rich avocados.
Oh, wow.
Something to keep in mind.
So if our listeners listeners wanted to plant an avocado tree, what steps would they go through? I mean, how would they take the seed and make sure the ground's wet, bury it, leave it on top? What do they need to do?
Well, let's first tell them the parameters of where they can exist.
Yes.
Okay.
There are avocados that are as hardy as 15 degrees. And there's a guy in Texas who I'd love to meet one of these. I've talked to him on the phone a few times and read some of his stuff. I think I even saw he has a YouTube channel or something. But he was telling me that there are places he's found trees that freeze really hard every year in Texas, and actually can come out of the freeze,
sprout new growth, flower, fruit, and then the fruit will ripen up toward the end of this season before the next freeze comes. And so he's got all these cultivars he's found, and so he's really pushing the limit there. Here we don't have to push the limit as much. We don't get that cold typically unless we get higher in elevation. But typically avocados, like the most tender ones that we grow, are still hardy to about 27, 28 degrees. And then we have more hardy ones that are, that are rated at 18 degrees. And that's for cold temperature. And that doesn't mean that you could sit there like for 6 months and be 18 degrees. That means the temperature drops. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, right before you get a glow on the horizon, you bottom out at 22, 21, whatever, limit it is for that particular fruit. And then it starts coming up. So you're just touching that point. And it's all variable too on how much, if the tree is really underwatered, it's going to stress out more and freeze easier. If it's full of water and all its capillaries are totally full, it's going to resist freeze damage more. That's true with all plants. And it's also on the size of the tree. If it's a big, woody, thick tree, it's going to withstand a freeze much better than a little baby tree. And even under severe freezes that have gotten even colder than that in some places, we had a really bad freeze in Texas some years ago, so they learned a lot of things. But these big giant trees have big trunks. It'll just kill it all the way down to like the bottom. The top of the tree will protect it a little bit during the freeze, but then just sacrifice itself. And then the bottom stays alive. And then spring comes and they come sprouting out. So those are all the things you have to think about cold temperatures. Now on the high end, I think I already talked about the high end. There's not many places hotter than Phoenix, and you could grow it there, but you do have to pay attention to, somehow cooling its tissues in the late afternoon, especially. One way you can do that is you can spray onto the tree like a whitewash, collect the light. There's a product called Kale and Clay, and you can mix that with water and spray it on there. That has additional quality of being abrasive to bugs. They don't like to walk on it, so they really don't mess with trees where that's applied, because it's actually like it's a non-toxic mineral from the earth that's sort of like on a microscopic level really prickly. And then you can also use white latex paint, watered down with water, like a 1-to-4 ratio, and you can paint that on the trunks of the tree. The leaves could take a huge amount of heat, but and be okay as long as they're hydrated. And then the stems themselves, especially the new green ones, are really susceptible to sunburn because they're used to being in a humid forest with other trees protecting them from low angle side sun creeping in. And so, you have to paint those on the south and west sides pretty much only. You have to really protect all of the stems from that brutal sunlight. And if you do all those things, or if you have a temperature controlled misting system that will come on a few times a day during the most absolute brutal hot days, then it will actually cool the plant tissue down, even though the air is really hot. You can do it sporadically a few times, either manually or automatically, and you can overcome those extreme events that would hurt your avocados.
So, to Tammy's questions, then, is it when we start? Because you've inspired us. Maybe we want to grow an avocado tree.
We're gonna have
so, do we
avocados.
start with seedlings? Do we go to the nursery, start with seedlings, or do we
Well,
do the traditional
Avocado pit.
pit with toothpicks and a glass of water?
You can do that.
Wow.
If you do it that way, you want to get the more vigorous types, like the Mexican types. There's basically three. They call them three races of avocados. There's Mexican, which are the hardiest ones. They're from the highlands of Mexico. Then descending south in latitude, in the mid elevations of Guatemala, there's another type, and these big round ones, like even the one the guy sent me and this one here, these are Guatemalan types. The more Mexican types are these are all hybrid Mexican types. This is a lamb house avocado. It's hybrid between Mexican and Guatemalan types. They're smaller fruit, thinner skin, but more cold hardy than the big round Guatemalan types. Guatemalan types have thicker skin. They're bigger. They're rounder usually, and they usually withstand a little bit less cold. Then the last type, they call them
West Indian type, and but it's kind of a misnomer because they think the ones that were that on the West Indies, and the islands out there, when they first designated these trees this way, they're lowland tropical types. They're really big and round, but they're really watery and they're not that good to eat. So we sort of don't even really mess with those types here. But the reason they were called West Indian is they were found there, but they're pretty sure now that those got moved there from Central America and Mexico before people were really keeping track of what was what.
Wow.
And so it really shouldn't be called West Indian. It should just be called lowland tropical, because they were most likely originating from the shores of Central America. And then the Guatemalan types are at 3,000 or 4,000 foot elevation. And then the Mexican types are more at like 4,000 to 6,000 foot, but at a higher latitude.
So are you saying they're easy to grow, and do they take much water?
Yeah, and so let's see, a lot of things I'm trying to say. It's all so confusing. But I think I was leading into that just so you can understand, like the Mexican types are always going to be hardier and tougher, followed by the Guatemalan types, and don't even worry about growing the tropical types. Are really not worth it. From the seed, we were talking about seeds. Okay, so with the seeds, you basically, like, the Mexican types are the hardiest, toughest seed stock there is. And so if you're going to grow them from seed, you want to ideally grow them from Mexican type avocados. Those are avocados like Fuerte or Bacon or Zutano, or one called, there's a few others, Brain Block. But anyway, there's a few of those. And then you would take your seedling, grow it up. If you get a really hardy seedling, you're going to have less trouble with freezes and everything else. Grow it up a little bit. Here's an example of a little stem here. You would grow the thing up. I'm going to hold it vertically. Grow it up, and then you cut it, splice it, take your good type, the one you really want, that's got really good qualities, like any of these ones, like our little Avocado here, for instance. And then you splice it in there, and then get it to grow. And then that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to be waiting about 10 years for your seedling to produce fruit. There's quite a bit of process involved with that. And you really need good conditions with like a misting house or a shade house or a greenhouse to get that going. And even people like me who do this, like, have, a decent failure rate. So you have to just keep doing it. And then, eventually you get your trees that way.
Do you have on your website, do you help those that have been inspired by your passion of the avocado? Do you have a video that kind of tells people how to grow avocados?
I generally just tell people to come down to the nursery and buy them.
Okay.
Because the other thing that we found, especially in Northern California, obviously the conditions aren't as ideal as Southern California. From a moisture standpoint, they're better here, but from like a temperature standpoint, they're better down there. So it's a little tougher to get them going here, but not too much. You can still do it. You just have to pay attention to things a little closer. And so one of the things we found is that starting with a bigger, more substantial plant it's just like a person. Like,
yeah,
take a teenager out to the beach and put them down, tell them to hang out and, lay down on their towel and chill out. They might get sunburned that day, but it probably won't be a big deal. You take a brand new newborn baby down there and you put the baby on the same beach towel and let them sit there all day.
You're going to have problems.
Bad things will happen.
Yes.
So we've learned through trial and error that we send out a plant that's like a 15-gallon size. Typically, that's usually about the size. They really are tough.
15-gallon, good.
Wow.
We don't recommend people spend all this time. They really want an avocado tree. They can fool around and have fun with it.
And I believe several of our nurseries do actually carry avocado trees here in the state of Arizona. So if somebody is really serious about it, the passion of Gary Gregg will inspire you to get out to the nursery and buy a 15-gallon, I think you said, 15-gallon
Also,
avocado
tree.
we grow a lot of these trees at our San Diego locations. That's not too far from you guys.
There you go. We'll drive and get it.
Well, and do you
Somebody's
have,
taking it.
I was looking, your nursery is called Golden Gate Palms and Exotic Nurseries. Are there other exotics or palms that are your favorites? What kind of things do you grow?
Well, let's see. We have about 100 different kind of palms. I probably
Wow.
have 15 of them here in this garden right here. And just palms from all over the world that are hardy for here. And there's a lot of really cool palms that are grown out in Arizona too. There's
Yes.
also palms. I don't know if you can see here. These are queen palms right here. They're a pretty common palm.
Mm-hmm.
Them up there, right there.
Uh-huh.
Now, what I've noticed in Phoenix is that, people like that palm for a lot of reasons. There's no thorns on it. It's easy to take care of. It becomes self-cleaning in time. However, it really hates that late summer heat you guys have. And most of them out in Arizona are they're alive. They're just kind of beat looking. So, and they always have a couple dead fronds in the middle that were young in the tree when the heat hit. And so they never quite seem to look right there.
I had a family friend of ours. They've had to replace a couple. One, I think it was last summer because the summer was so hot. I think it killed the tree.
We
So-
had to replace one of those.
Yeah.
We had one
Yeah.
of those. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like there's a lot of other trees though that'll handle that heat. Like the true date palm is native to the Middle East, Algeria, and it doesn't get any hotter there than Phoenix, and or they're both about equal. So that palm thrives where you guys are, and
And what's the
whereas
name of it again?
it's called Phoenix dactylifera, the true date palm. Like the dates that you buy in the store
Okay. Okay.
are come off of that tree. And when we grow that tree here in the Bay Area, it will fruit, but the fruit never ripens because there's not enough of that critical heat. Whereas in Phoenix, it will absolutely ripen, and you can have super high quality dates right in your backyard.
And hence, that's why we have the great date palms coming from Yuma.
That's
Yeah.
true.
The date farms there. Gary, we've almost run out of time, so we always ask this of our guests because we want our listeners, our loyal listeners, to kind of always have those takeaway, whether that's 2 or 3 takeaways or just kind of final words about plants and avocados and all that fun stuff. Any like final takeaways as it relates to what we got to talk about today?
Well, we didn't get into the blood avocado rant besides the ecological part. There's a humanitarian part too, where a lot of these especially European companies are going down to Central America, South America, buying up plots of land. They are drilling deep wells to scrape the hillsides and put avocados everywhere to send to us, and they're lowering the groundwater tables for these little rivers and these little towns that these people depend on, and they're shallow wells. And so there's no rules down there for that kind of thing. There's no protection laws. There's problems with that. But in Mexico, the worst thing of all that's happening, and there's a lot of this on the internet you can research, is that the drug cartels, they have taken a liking to going into these avocado production areas and terrorizing the farmers by abducting workers, sometimes abducting the owners, even cutting off hands. There's been reports of that, for intimidating these people to pay them protection money. And so that's why I call them blood avocados, is you're sort of contributing to that, ecological harm and also
Heartbreaking.
humanitarian issues when you can just be growing it in your backyard, wherever you're able to.
So my takeaway in these from Gary Gregg today, in these temperate regions, including here in Arizona, that we have the capacity and the capabilities, if we hang out with guys like him, to grow our own avocados. And it is the perfect food because it's so healthy for us. So that's my takeaway. And I really appreciate this. And I'm so glad that I met you through my cousin, who just serendipitously happened to post the Rose interview that you did on him. It was so fun. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
last thing too is that because these fruit can sit in the tree in a highly nutritious form for up to a year, that adds a lot of food security to your life.
Very
You remember
true.
what happened in COVID? People didn't know if people were going to keep producing fruit or what. We were all worried about our food supply. If you have a tree out there that has a whole bunch of calories on it, sitting there as a bank of calories, that's some serious food security.
You are so right. And this pistachio farmer girl, when we were growing up on a farm and we grew pistachios, I'm convinced now that all we need is avocado trees and pistachios. No.
Well, I could never have too many avocados,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
my takeaway is, though, if you do not grow an avocado tree, buy USA when you can.
Yes. Based
Because,
on,
yeah,
for sure.
supporting our
Yeah.
economy.
yep.
Absolutely. That I forgot to say that. Thank you for mentioning that.
Gary, thanks so much. This was so fun. And pass along a hello to my cousin Jeff. And I'm so glad that you guys know each other, grew up together, and are celebrating the plant life.
And I would,
Oh yeah.
I would
Glad to
love,
have another fellow plant nerd.
Yeah.
and I would love to get into some of the other exotics and palms that you have there another time. So we would love to have you back sometime.
We might have to have you back, yes. All right.
Well,
Thank
Thanks
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you so much.
all right.